Hey,
All right, I think we're live.
we are.
How's it going, everybody?
Look at all these people
How y'all
in
doing?
there.
Are there a bunch? I'm a
Yeah.
little behind, guys. So sorry about that. I'm trying to get things spun up on my own
See,
because
Dragon
I'm
Layer,
home. I'm home now,
Anthony.
so I was actually getting my kid to bed, and now I'm down here streaming with you guys, and we're gonna move some tanks around, I think, while I chat. So getting things spun up on my computer. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, Third Coast, Dragon Layer, Anthony, Scott's here, Vinoxky. Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? Thanks for bearing with me. We're running a couple minutes late. Like I said, I was kind of getting my kid off to bed upstairs now that I'm home. And now I figured I'd talk to you guys a little bit while we work downstairs. And I think any minute now, we should have somebody joining us. We'll see. Hey, yes, what's up? Dragon Layer Twin Cities, Kang Lee's here. How's it going, Kang? How are you tonight? How's work been? You guys staying busy?
How is it at home now? You're happy to be home?
It's cold. Yeah, we're not supposed to have high temperatures above 0 for the next 2 weeks. So that's a nice welcome home. So not looking forward to that much at all. There's a little bit of snow on the ground, not a whole lot. What don't you like, Anthony? Says, I don't like. Not sure what he's talking about. The weather, probably, because that weather sucks. I'm not going to lie. That weather's terrible. Deborah Lewis, howdy from North Carolina. It's probably a lot warmer down there. And welcome to All Things Fish. I don't think I've seen you tune in the chat before. Welcome to All Things Fish. I'm Mike, and this is Priscilla from Swiss Aquatics. She's the regular co-host. We may have some people in and out, but she's our... Oh, Anthony. Anthony doesn't like my face. I'm surprised you didn't mention anything yet. I think Anthony's the only one.
Wow. I didn't even notice. I thought you looked different.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Rico stands here. Hey, Rico. Into your stream for a little bit this week, but I said I've been busy at home, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to jump into the different chats and stuff. Priorities, you know.
Hey,
Kira,
Bob might be backstage.
is he? I don't see him yet. I'm looking. I don't see him yet. Let's see.
I got all the rainbow questions.
Do you? We're going to talk about rainbow fish. Is the audio okay? It's kind of echoey. I'm down in the basement, which is a nice change of pace from I took your gold curtain away, and now you get this lovely wainscoting paneling back here. My cabinets. John McKenzie, what's up? How's it going tonight? Hello. We're waiting on our guest.
When's your birthday?
What's it to you?
What?
Well, I said, what's it to you?
Well, I'm gonna send you a yellow curtain.
I don't need any of that.
I'll send you a yellow curtain anyway.
Hey, John Cruz, Basement Troll. Hey, John, thanks for tuning in. I know you guys are cold up in the Northeast too, so I'm sure you're huddled up inside. Sand Creek Aquatics 2's here, apparently. I don't see her yet, but hey, Amy, hello. Patty says, oh my God, things you look like a child. Yep. So that happened. And we're waiting on one more, and I don't see him just yet. So if you want to work on that, Priscilla, I'll kind of get things started a little bit. But again, welcome to Aquatic Exchange. This is the All Things Fish live stream, episode number 3. And tonight we have Priscilla MK from Swiss Aquatics, world-renowned artist and aquarium keeper, fish connoisseur, and your local fish shop manager. Hey, Maria Z. And soon enough, we'll have another guest here that specializes in our topic for the night, which is rainbow fish. And I know there's kind of a little bit of a surge in popularity with rainbow fish lately, it seems. And I know, do you guys keep a lot of rainbow fish at the shop there, Priscilla? Or do you see much popularity there in your area?
They're not super popular here in Colorado. We have only like one rainbow tank, like a 75 with mixed rainbows.
Okay. And so you don't really sell a whole lot at the shop? You just don't really keep them so much?
No, because people don't want to buy them until they're actually colored up.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have noticed that's kind of something that you see a lot of the time, since rainbow fish do grow extremely slow, whether it's the full size like your Melitania or your pseudomugills. They grow so slow that you have to keep adult fish, which are obviously more expensive and a little bit older, in order to get anybody's interest in them, as they just walk by a tank. If you didn't know what it was, you just see another gray fish that kind of had like a little silver flash on the side and wouldn't be super impressed, right? So it's kind of a tough sell sometimes.
Like yesterday, we got in a big fish order, and we got in some Millennium rainbows, which are supposed to be red, but they're like 1.5 inches in silver. Right. So nobody's going to buy those till they actually get some color.
Yeah, not a lot of color. Dragon Lair says he has some ornamentus, which are kind of on my list right now that I'd like to get a hold of. It's not something that, I know they're not super uncommon, but I haven't really seen them for sale recently. Do you guys, obviously you work with a lot of wholesalers at the shop. Do you guys see a lot of different rainbow fish even available on distributor lists? Or?
Yeah, so my wholesaler actually has a fair amount of rainbows, but like I said, it's more of a 1 to 2 inch size rainbow.
Okay.
Which are fairly inexpensive, but technically you have to keep them for like what, 8 months or so?
Oh yeah, I mean, so right now the main species that I've been working with the past couple of years, or I guess the last year or so, is Chalathrin alani, and it takes probably a good 6 months to even attempt to be able to sex them, just based on, like I said, slow growth rate. And that's feeding, I feed a ton of live foods, and that's the key to success with a lot of your rainbows, is live foods, I think, especially to show off the color and get some of the actual, to trigger spawning, you know?
Yes.
Oh, Fish Guys Nick is talking crap. The Arsenal are struggling, but we're going to hang in there. We're going to support them the whole way.
Let me check out something real quick.
Okay. Dragon Lair says Imperial Tropicals carries adult ornamentus. Yeah. Every now and then I look at Imperial's list. I haven't ordered from them. I've worked with, I think it's Mike that runs Imperial Tropicals. And he's a nice guy. I've just never actually ordered anything from him. They do get quite a few fish down there. I believe they're based out of Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And I think they're actually one of the few US-based distributors that ships to Canada. Third Coast, they have a long ways to grow. Yep, it does. And a lot of people talk about breeding fish for profit. And rainbow fish are definitely not one that I would ever recommend to attempt to breed for profit, just because they take so long to grow. Their initial cost is generally expensive because it's not that they're hard to find, but like you said, it's a hard sell for most wholesalers and most shops. So when you do see them for sale, the cost is generally a little bit higher. Even if you're buying from hobbyists, there's not a ton of people that really breed them. So your cost of acquisition is going to be pretty high. It's going to take you a while to grow them out. And then once you finally do grow them out, you're going to have to charge a little more. And sometimes you're looking at, you know, some of the nicer rainbow fish at a sellable size, you're looking at $20+ each. And that's generally a lot more than most freshwater hobbyists are willing to spend, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the same goes for like African cichlids. Like yesterday, I just got some massive like Venustus, dolphins, Malawi eye biters, and they were like 7-8 inches, but they're all going to be like $40. So
yeah. And John said Mike's got some of the Trifasciata, the Blythe rivers, and those are probably from the Trifasciata that I've seen. The Blythe rivers might be one of my favorite collection points, and that's one thing that you tend to see in rainbow fish that you might not see in a lot of your other fishes is an emphasis on collection points. I know you see it in some of the fancier main lake African cichlids, like your frontosas are usually associated with a collection point, or your feather fins are often associated with a collection point. But rainbows, like the Bosemani, for example, there's kind of a generic Bosemani strain that everybody sees in the hobby. But there's also, your Lake Itingo, which tends to be a little more red or orange. And then your Ass Creek, which originally, there's also, your Lake Itingo. Hey, there we go. Look at this guy. How's it going, Bob? What's up, man?
I don't think he can hear us. Can he?
I can hear you. I just have an echo. I'm trying to figure it out. Are you guys still there?
Yeah.
All right. Is there an echo?
No.
All right. I think it's this. Nope. You're good now. How you doing, Bob?
What's going on?
Good. Good. All right, guys. We got for those of you that don't recognize the bearded mug next to us up here, that is Bob Steenfott, the one and only from Steenfott Aquatics. And it was kind of a last minute call last week during the stream. He popped in and we started talking about rainbow fish. So we figured we'd have a rainbow fish guru like Bob up on the stream to chat with us a little bit so that we can all learn a little something about this not necessarily super uncommon, but maybe underrated fish in the hobby. What do you think, Bob?
I feel they're pretty underrated. Somebody last week made the comment how there's like a rainbow fish train, and they didn't want to talk about rainbow fish because everyone's on the rainbow fish train. And I was like, where's this train? I haven't seen it.
Right. And I feel like maybe there's a little bit of a push in popularity the past couple of years, especially, with guys like yourself and some of the other folks that are bringing in some of the less common strains. And, there's recently, I think it was the Sacramento Aquarium Society had a webinar with the COVID stuff. Webinars are popular, and they had Gary Lang on there talking about rainbow fish. And so there's a little bit of a push to increase awareness about them, I guess. But Priscilla and I were talking earlier. I'm not sure if you were tuned in yet, but they're kind of hard to sell to just your everyday hobbyist because generally speaking, you see the younger ones for sale that aren't quite colored up yet. So most people don't really see the actual beauty of the fish that you see in the adults.
I gotta fix something here. I feel like a massive delay.
I got some thread fins in yesterday at the store, but they're tiny. They're microscopic. They're like as big as a neon tetra.
Really? That's surprising. And did you get mostly males, I'd imagine? Or did you get many females?
I don't know, because they have no color or anything. They all look the same to me.
And that's one of the things, like I said, it takes a while for myself at least to sex them out, just because it takes them so long to develop and grow out and start displaying some of that the dimorphism that you'd expect to see.
All right, I think I'm fixed. I never use StreamYard, so it's always a struggle to start out with it. I think I got everything fixed.
I'm fighting my way through it too. So it seems to be, it was the first option that I came across. I've only been streaming a few weeks now. First option that I saw. So I'm testing it out, seeing what I like, and maybe test out some other platforms and see which one I prefer. But anyway, yeah. So here we are. Bob, how long you been keeping rainbow fish? I know you've been playing the game for a little while. What's your experience with them? Just a quick background.
Well, I don't really consider myself an expert. I'm just a rainbow fish hobbyist, and I love the fish. I've been keeping them for only about 5 years now. Okay. Well, maybe 6, maybe 7, 5. We'll say 5 to 7. Okay.
And do you find yourself trying to breed a lot of them, or you just keep them to grow them out and enjoy the adult coloration that they tend to display? Or
I don't breed them specifically like to breed them, but they do breed in my aquariums. But I'm not. Right. Yeah. I'm certainly not Gary Lang or one of these, or someone that like specifically breeds them to hand out eggs and things like that.
Right. So And as far as acquiring them, are you able to acquire many of them locally? I mean, I know you offer when you had things up and running pretty well, you offered a bunch out. Do you acquire many locally, or do you find you have to ship them in from other folks like Gary or some outside sources like that?
They're all shipped in, and luckily I've been around long enough to have connections. I've met Gary Lang multiple times. We hung out at the Aquatic Experience once, and he's come to Seattle a few times. So that helps. That helps to get some of his fish.
Yeah, it definitely. I'm not super far from him. Now that I'm back home in Iowa, I'm just to the north, so I'm not super far away. One of these days, I'd like to get down to the Massey swaps. It's one thing I haven't done, and I'd love to meet him in person, and hopefully, maybe one day I'll get a chance to check out his room.
Yeah, I still haven't been to his fish room, but hopefully one day.
The sheer number of not the holy grail fish for me, but right now the past year it's only rainbow stuff that I'd love to be able to see in person, because you see a lot of the stuff that people get in imports and offer up for sale. Like I said, you don't get to see them in person in their full colors and actual video is getting better every day as new cameras and stuff are released, but it's still hard to just capture the true beauty of some of these fish.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff you see online is edited as well, color corrected, and nothing's really true anymore.
Right. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of what it's come down to.
You kind of have to do it with rainbow fish, though. Otherwise, people are really going to think they're just really bland. That's because, like you said, you sell them at such a small size that you got to kind of put some color in there.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. And so I keep right now the only rainbows I have, because I recently a couple months ago tore down my fish room so that I could start building something new, which is where we're at now. Right now, all I've got is the Chalathrian alani, which are one of my favorites for now that I kept. I had some Fricatus, I had some Kamakas, Luminatus, so a little bit of variety, both the pseudomugils and the full size, the two rainbows, I guess. Do you find that you lean towards one type or the other as far as the?
Only because there's way more Melanotania than anything else. I don't really gravitate that way. I love them all. I'm not one of these rainbow purists that are like pseudomugils are not rainbow fish.
Right.
Come on, so I consider them all to be rainbow fish, and the taxonomy, and the what is it, philo whatever, the whole tree changes all the time, and I don't care enough to keep up with it. It just changed again 3 weeks ago, and it's just they're all rainbow fish, whatever.
Right.
Hey, so I have a burning question. I'm getting a 75-gallon tank, and I wanted to make it a high-tech planted tank with a Fluval 3.0, CO2, and everything. And I wanted to put in some Melanotania rainbows, different colors. And I know with rainbow breeders, it's a huge no-go to mix them, right?
Yeah, only if you plan on selling the fry, though.
Yeah, but if I've set up a 75-gallon with some and they breed, I mean, how big of a chance do I have for the fry to actually survive?
Not likely. I mean, and that's only even if they spawn.
Okay.
So in my experience, I've had a lot of high-tech CO2 highlight. I've never had them spawn in those conditions. It's always been the hot algae mess of a tank that they spawn in.
Yep.
And then the other question is, how many can I put in there?
On a 75?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, really, it just it depends. Melanotanias can be 2.5 inches or 6 inches.
Well, I'll try to go for the smaller ones, which I'll be bugging the both of you to figure out which one those are.
Smaller ones are going to be Kamaka, Praecox, Dwarf Dion, Parva. I guess Praecox and Dwarf Dion are the same thing. Parvas. I think Parvas are not very popular, and I feel like they should be. But they're
I definitely think two that I think should be more common that aren't are both Parva and the Parkinsoni.
Yeah, Parkinsoni is my favorite. I mean, I
similar,
get it with the Parva because they're only colorful for the first couple hours. but there's some really nice strains out there now that stay colorful all day.
And now we're talking about Rico Stanzas. Hot Algae was his nickname in college. We're talking about some of the strains that are technically full-size rainbows that stay a little bit smaller. I know recently there was talk about the Bosemani, the Avs Creek collection point, tending to stay on the smaller side. But now that I've heard that, now that they've been in the hobby for a little bit, people are finding out otherwise. Do you have much information on that, or have you heard similar things?
So I've never kept the Aves or the Avs Creek. I've only kept the Itenjo, and I know those stay smaller. Like I've kept those for long enough. But I've actually never kept the Aves Creek. Okay.
And I briefly mentioned different collection points. As far as the Bosemani, have you seen a drastic difference in coloration between collection points or strains?
Yeah. So in my experience, you have like just the regular farm bred Bosemani, which is still a good looking fish. But if you get like a true Itenjo, their oranges are almost red. It's like just a really dark, vibrant orange. Like I said, almost red. And then the other thing with them is that the females also have a ton of color, which you won't get that in the farm bred ones. Yeah. Like the females, like in these rainbow groups, someone will post a female of an Itenjo female, and everyone will be like, "Oh, that's a male." I'm like, "No." So they just look really good too.
Yeah, so it is a pretty drastic change then. That's surprising.
I would say they also tend to keep their colors longer. So if you've ever had like a Bosemani that's like 8-9 years old, they'll really start to get kind of pale, and it doesn't happen as much with the Itenjo. And I don't know if that's really collection point or if it's just they haven't been, farm bred and interbred for decades and lost color that way.
And that's another thing, So I know I saw one of it was an interview with Gary, I think, and Gary had spawned a certain rainbows, and he offered up the information that he was trying to help some of these farms or wholesalers help distribute that fish out into the hobby. Hopefully, as hobbyists and as smaller level breeders, we tend to selectively breed a little bit more and take pretty good care of our fish. And sometimes, even though we have the best intentions by trying to distribute them large scale, when you get into those mass production situations, you tend to lose some of this, like you said, whether it's shorter lived color or not as intense color.
Well, I think also the thing when you come to like the farm bred, and Gary is working with the farms, and I can actually buy from those farms, which is nice. So I can get Gary Lang strain, is that they're still not in the best conditions at the farms. They're still getting fed the bare minimum. So, but it is still technically better that they're not crossbred.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So talking about feed in rainbows, do you have preferred foods that you like to feed? Do you have certain foods that you've noticed either increased spawning or better coloration based on?
I think the one thing people don't think about when it comes to rainbows is that they do love protein. There was this thing going around like 4 or 5 years ago where you got to give them lots of greens and algae. And I don't know how that got out there, but even Gary was like, who is starting this nonsense? And he's like, protein, lots of protein. They're super active fish. And just like anything, just a good quality. I feed extreme or frozen or live. Okay. And as far as frozen foods, what are you usually feeding as far as frozens? I know it seems like in the hobby, bloodworms are maybe a little more popular than they should be. I don't do bloodworms at all. I do everything except bloodworms. Okay. So when I order, I do order bloodworms for like my newts, but that's it. None of my fish get bloodworms. Okay. But yeah, everything else they get.
Awesome. What about live?
Except for like the gigantic like frozen shrimp and things like that. Okay. But they do get cocktail shrimp. It just takes them forever to eat it.
Really? And if you feed them cocktail shrimp, are you running that like a blender or anything and just dicing it up?
Nope.
Really?
Not at all.
The whole
thing? Just throw in the whole thing, and they'll chase it around for an hour before they get all of it.
I'll have to try that. Now, do you feed that frozen versus thawing it out? I'd imagine it lasts a little bit longer in the tank.
I throw it in frozen.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yep.
That's
So
something I
they
haven't heard of
float
people
when they're
feeding horse shrimp.
frozen. Not that that's any better, but as soon as they like thaw out and hit the bottom, then the cories and the plecos get on them.
Yeah. I haven't heard of people feeding rainbow whole shrimp like that.
Oh yeah,
So Fish Guy Nick.
it's just for fun, like just watching, like in my 240 gallon, seeing 50 rainbows like fight over shrimp. It's just fun.
Right. So Fish Guy Nick asked, why are bloodworms so popular when they're such a bad live food option, nutrition-wise? I think it's availability, and I think it's one of those things that, you know, based on maybe limited options, it kind of gained popularity because that's just what people had around, and that stuck. But I haven't really been around a ton, and I don't feed bloodworms a ton to know.
I don't think I've ever seen live bloodworms.
Yeah, me neither. You think blackworms, right?
Oh, well, okay. So maybe I read the question as
so popular when they're such a bad live food option.
I'm thinking maybe he meant a frozen food option.
Yeah, probably frozen.
I know. I think the only person I've ever heard of culturing live bloodworms is Preston. And that dude cultures more weird crap than anybody I've ever met. He gave me.
I was just gonna say the reason I don't like bloodworms is that they're always pretty fatty. And I just don't like the high fat content.
Okay. Yeah.
Now there's lots of horror stories about you know, bloodworms bringing in diseases and things like that. Luckily, I've never had that issue. They're just really fatty and like, I don't know. I feel like when I was buying them in those big flats, and you like break off a piece and like 10% of it was just fat. So, or just waste.
And it seems like anymore nowadays, that's a general consensus, is that, like you said, that there's a chance. Some people claim they've had, you know, parasites or pathogens. So generally speaking, there's a lot of food options there these days.
It is possible. I mean, they are, you know, most of them come from California, and they are bred out there, and they just scoop them up and freeze them in that crappy water they have out there.
All right. Dragon Layer said some of the harder to feed fish might take bloodworms because of the fat content. Might be a little more appealing to them.
That's true. I'm lucky in that I have blackworms, so I never have to deal with bloodworms ever.
Yeah. So,
I don't like blackworms. Sometimes they have leeches, and that's disgusting.
I don't know. I've never had issues with leeches.
So,
no?
Never. Knock on wood.
I haven't personally. No, and I know some shops have said that because of the corona stuff, they've had a little bit harder time getting live blackworms in. Has that been your experience, or have you still been? I know right now you don't have a ton of fish.
Like the first 6 months, it was I couldn't get them anymore, but they've been readily available now for quite a while.
Okay.
From the wholesalers.
Okay. Yeah. I usually go up every time I'm in the city. So if I Kangley, I'll go to Tamed Waters and get some blackworms from Phil. He usually has, you know, he'll cut me a deal dirt cheap, and I'll get between 2 or 3 of us. We'll usually road trip up there and check out some of the different shops, and then we'll split like a pound between us, and that'll get me by for a little bit. But I've noticed, unrelated to rainbows, but I've noticed that blackworms will cause a lot of cories to spawn too.
Exactly. That's what I use to spawn cories. I also like them because they'll live in the aquarium. They won't die off and foul your water.
Rescue Dog Treats asked, has anybody ever seen plecos eat a baby brine? I can't say that I personally have.
Only frozen.
Yeah.
I mean, if they die, fall down, then they'll eat it.
Right. They're not particularly, you know, predatory. Some of the plecos have a little more of a carnivorous appetite to them, being omnivores, but I don't think they take a live baby brine.
Hey, I got another rainbow question. So if I do a community rainbow tank, I got the questions about this tank I'm gonna set up. What are the biggest issue you guys ran into with keeping mixed rainbows?
I wouldn't have any issues from mixed that I wouldn't have with species only. That's all the same issues always.
Like aggression issues, or
I mean, well, like the turquoise rainbow can be kind of aggressive. Usually they have to be like full grown adults before I see any type of aggression, which takes forever. But I mean, if you have a whole tank full of rainbows, I hardly ever see aggression.
Right. And I'd share the same sentiment based on my experience. I've kept similar rainbows together. I'm not necessarily in like a big community tank, but just within like intra-species. I mean, rainbows they're very active fish and they're very fast moving, but they're not particularly aggressive. Would be
I always
I describe them.
In my streams, someone will make a comment like, my rainbow killed all my fish. And I'm just like, I don't know about that one. I think maybe something else happened there.
Yeah.
What about tank mates? Like you guys said, Corys, plecos?
Everything. I mean, I've even kept little strawberry rasboras with full-grown Bosemani's with no issue.
Nice.
Yeah. And obviously your mileage may vary, but generally speaking, if you want a great community fish that comes in a ton of different flavors, different sizes, I mean, rainbows are kind of the place to be. Most of them are pretty open as far as water parameters go, I think. Generally speaking, I spawn most of my stuff, my rainbows, I spawn in about 120 to 150 TDS. So fairly soft water, but as far as just being able to keep a rainbow fish, in my experience, they're pretty flexible as far as water parameters.
Yeah, I agree. Water parameters, very flexible. However, they're not very forgiving on poor water quality.
Right.
So whereas, like Corys and other fish, you can go, I mean, they'll live in like mud, but rainbows, they'll have issues really fast when you start skipping water changes. And,
generally speaking, from my understanding, the little bit of reading that I've done, and I should obviously do more, but they usually come from fairly, quick moving water. Not all the time. There's some slower, like little side streams. But it seems like based on water quality, their eggs fungus pretty easily. At least in the past year, the food I've bred, it seems like the eggs fungus much faster than some other species of fish that I've raised.
Yeah, it's definitely nothing like bristlenose pleco eggs that you can just let float around in the tank.
Right. So Twin Cities Guppies, Kangley, he said his brother has guppies in with his rainbow fish. Like I said, minimum aggression. Don't see him nip fins. And Alishan said that he uses rainbows as dithers for his cichlids. I mean, they're just, it's a shame they aren't more popular in the hobby. But like I said, it's just a tough sell for most shops, man. You gotta get old colored up fish.
I think
not
the
necessarily
biggest
old,
part is the
but
coloration. Like if they would have color at 2 inches, they would sell all day long.
Especially when you got to buy so many of them. From like a pet store standpoint, like you just can't buy 6. Like you have to buy like 50 to get a good price on them, and then you're going to sit on 50 of these fish for like a year. So I can't really blame fish stores for not bringing them in.
Mm-hmm. Hey, and now, so I know that recently you offered some pretty uncommon rainbows through your website. That's SteenfottAquatics.com. Did you find that you were sitting on those very long, or did they seem to move pretty quick? I know you kind of have a little more of a niche audience than most just shops.
So I'm not gonna lie, I get a very good deal on my rainbows. So I only have to buy like 24 at a time, and I get a really good deal. I didn't really sit on anything except for parvas. Those are the only fish.
Really?
I mean, they were the worst selling rainbows were the parvas.
I
don't know why, because they're such awesome. I mean, I said earlier that they only stay colorful for like the first couple hours your lights are on. So you do have to be somewhat strategic in your lighting. Like get home from work, make sure you turn their lights on then, not in the morning when you're at work.
Yeah. So Third Coast Aquatics said he lets his cold neo shrimp into my other tanks, let them breed free food for my other fish. Works especially well breeding thousands of shrimp. So one technique that I tried, because I was getting a ton of eggs, like 60 to 70 eggs every few days out of my Chilathriana, the Alani, and that's the Wapoga collection. I got a ton of eggs. So at first I was picking eggs, and I tried methylene blue to try to keep some fungus away. Didn't have great luck. Tried peroxide every day. Didn't have great luck. And then I ended up pulling the whole mop, and I put the mop itself in a 2.5 gallon tank with some cherry shrimp. And I saw that I was actually getting better hatch rates and getting more fry from that. I know like Gary generally tends to, he uses like little Tupperwares to hatch stuff out, I think. I've seen some of his videos. What techniques, I know you said you don't intentionally work on breeding them, but what would your go-to method if you wanted to hatch some out after they spawn them off for you?
So I do. When I say I don't like intentionally breed them, I do breed them, but I'll just throw in a spawning mop to their current aquarium. I'll let them spawn in there. I'll let them hatch in there, and whatever makes it, and whatever doesn't. Right. So I'm not going for like really high yield rates or anything like that. It's just like, hey, if I can get maybe 30 or 40 of them in this batch, then, you know, I can sell 30 or 40 of them.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was doing like, you know, removing the spawning mops and going for just high yield rates, then I'd have to like start getting in touch with wholesalers and trying to sell them that way. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Like I said, I like to breed stuff. But I try to only breed as much as I can get rid of, like at nearby swap meets, like anything within maybe a 3 or 4 hour drive. Go to a swap meet and get off for a couple. I don't really have personal interest in just raising a ton of type of fish. Like you said, it's hard to find homes for them, and I think in general, everybody wants to breed fish, but they don't really have in mind for how they're going to get rid of those fish.
Yeah, that's certainly true, and I always try to tell people, like when they ask me like breeding fish in my streams, I'm always like, just make sure you got somewhere to get rid of them. Like I don't have a local fish store anymore; they've all gone in the last couple of years. You know, shut down. One started on fire and burned down, and so it's not like I can just, I'm going to get this fish and breed it, and I'll just give it to my local fish store. That's not an option for me anymore.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And we had, so I lived in South Dakota most of the time, and we had a couple local shops, but unfortunately, over the years with the e-commerce, largely the big box stores not so much, but e-commerce really kind of ran them into the ground a little bit. So now we have to struggle with not having special locally shops. So Alishan said rainbows are good summer tub fish. Said they'll lay eggs on like water hyacinth roots or some of the floaters, and then you transfer those to a small tub for hatching grout. I personally never set up in a tub, and that's kind of my goal for this year. Is to try a couple. And I know some people do rainbows. Have you done rainbow fish at all in tubs, or do you have any experience in outdoor tubs at all?
Yeah, so I did Radinocentris outside this summer, and actually I didn't get any fry. And everyone I talked to that was doing rads were getting like thousands of fry all summer. No fry. We did yellow rainbows outside, and found out that they go down to about 50 degrees, so that was pretty cool. But again, no spawning, but we had a really, really late summer season here, and I think that kind of hurt me quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because we didn't even get enough heat to have fish out until like July.
Okay. Yeah, I think, so I'm in South Dakota, and we kind of we're pretty limited on the amount of time that we can actually place most fish outdoors, at least as well. So it comes to, for me, it comes down to, well, is it worth the effort to set it up and then take it back down at the end of the season and move fish in and out? Like I said, I'm not really good for quantity. It'd be nice to have the option, but I necessarily for the 3, maybe 4 months I would get, I'm not sure if the reward would be worth the effort.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same thing here. So this year, I'm not doing any rainbows outside. I'm only going to do like cold water native species, just so I can get, another 3 or 4 months out of them.
Right. Yeah. So here we mentioned the cold temperatures. And I believe last week maybe we talked about, somebody asked how cold shrimp can go. Recently, I got home from Guam, and I keep most of my tanks in my basement, and did not realize that apparently the heater in what was my fish closet was unplugged where I kept my shrimp, and the Neos were down to about 60 degrees. And I went from, so I got about a dozen blue velvets or blue diamonds. You know, there's a million names for them. Just really like a quality dark blue strain of Neos. I got about a dozen of them at the end of November, and even in 60-degree water, I'm up to over 100 right now. So if you want a cold water shrimp, Neos, most strains, I'd imagine, it depends on the quality of the shrimp you get, but they can hack it.
I've always kept mine in the low 60s.
And hot anyway. Like heat kills shrimp quick.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, when I did my breeding fish for profit, I kept that tank at about 62 degrees, and they just bred like gangbusters. Yeah.
So you mentioned Radinocentris, which up until maybe a year ago was a strain of rainbows that I was, or a group of rainbows that I was completely unfamiliar with until I actually saw Marcel posting some on Aquabed. And that's how I started, you know, to kind of learn about them. And you want to talk about a fish that you don't see in the hobby that can be stunning, in my opinion, at least. So I don't own any, but I was able to get some from Marcel. I actually purchased a breeding group. Well, it was a young group at the time of the Tewa Creek collection point, and sent those to a friend who had a little more space in his room long term. And he was able to get a bunch of fry from them. And the males, whew, those are some good looking fish, and they don't get big.
The Tewa Creek, those are one of the nicer ones too.
Yeah, they don't take up a lot of room, so you get the, you know, a similar body shape to a true rainbow, so one of the full size boats, without having to need like a 40 breeder or something bigger. I think he's breeding them in like a 10 right now, and they do just fine. He's got a good size group in there.
Yeah, for breeding, you definitely can put him in a 10. I had Parkinsona in a 20, breeding them in 20-gallon tanks.
I have no clue which rainbow fish you guys are talking about.
I will say, like, so I was, you know, like I said before, last year it was almost impossible to get rads. It was really hard, and I wanted them for years, and I always said that they were like a nano rainbow fish, and then I got some and grew them out, and they get actually way bigger than I thought. Like some of them are up to 4 inches, which is pretty crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a long time, but yeah, I was like, man, when are these things gonna stop growing?
What are they called? I gotta look it up now.
So Radinocentris, and then Ornatus.
How do you spell that?
RHAD.
All right, Mike. Thanks for stopping by. Maha Tliko said he's old and sleepy. Have a good night. And if you ever want to stream, you hit me up. You said you wish your friends would stream with you. I'm sure Priscilla would be in the same boat. We'll round up a crew and we'll all stream together.
Well, no, I mean, he needs to come over here to my house because he's got to pick up some stuff, and then we can just go live. Oh, I see. Oh, those are pretty.
Yeah. So I know I think it's the Cirrus Creek.
Siri
Creek. Yep. The Siri Creek is one that's
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So the Siri Creek is one that seemed like it kind of came out available first. That's at least what caught my attention. And you know, initially I saw those, I was like, oh, those are pretty cool. And I saw the Carlin Creek, which have a couple different variations. The blue and orange one, if I'm not mistaken, is the last common one. And then I saw Marcel post the Tewa Creek, and that's what kind of triggered me. I was like, oh, that's the one I want. Finally pulled the trigger, and it sucks that I don't have. I've owned the fish for like 6 months. I've never had them in my possession. I had them shipped straight to a friend's house to take care of them. But that's what friends are for, I suppose.
Yeah, I have the Siri Creek, the Stradbroke Creek, and one more strain that I'm drawing a blank on right now.
Okay. Yeah, I know Marcel's got Marcel and
2 of them came from Marcel.
Yeah, there's one other person in Wisconsin that offers up rads on Aquabed every now and then. I can't think of his name, but Marcel's got a lot of cool stuff. I messaged him back and forth a little bit, and He's got the lion's head, the Carlin's, no, Evan's head, sorry. But he's just got a crazy variety. And like I said, it's just stuff that, up until a year ago, I mean, I feel like I've been fairly involved in the hobby for about 15 years or so. Up until a year ago, I had no idea even existed.
Well, we actually got pretty lucky. I hate to use the term lucky because it involves COVID, but all of these rare rads and rainbows that hit the market last year were only bred for that big rainbow convention that was in Ontario.
Okay. Yeah.
That got canceled. So if they had went to Canada, then we never would have got any here. But since that got canceled, they all sold them on Aquabid, and now they're everywhere. So
right. And that was I saw some of the ads and stuff for that big convention in Ontario, and I haven't been huge into rainbow fish for long, but that definitely caught my attention. Some of the names that were there, and just the opportunity to potentially obtain some of the fish that they would have had to offer. It was pretty awesome, and like you said, the hobbyist lucked out with that getting canceled, and those people needing to move some of those fish that they raised just for that show.
The American hobbyist, anyways.
Right. Yeah.
The poor Canadians lose again.
Yeah. Well, that's something. I feel like
it's kind of a weird place to have it, though. To be honest.
Yeah, I wasn't sure why I picked Canada.
I was like, aren't they usually not allowed to have anything in Canada?
Canada
Well, certainly not allowed to be shipping much there, but I don't know.
Right. So George asked if you're sharing some of the rads anytime soon. I think
it probably won't be till next spring, and I have to start spawning them again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done for now because I'm tearing down both fish rooms and building a new one, and blah blah blah.
So, and like we said before you tuned in there, there's a lot of fish that you can breed for profit that makes sense. Rainbow fish are not, just based on the time it takes to grow them out to be sellable. Even if you find people that want them, they don't want them small. So definitely not something that I would think that you're ever going to make any money on trying to breed them out and sell. I
know one person that does it, and they do it in such mass amounts, like it's totally unrealistic for most people. And he's also like right next door to a importer, not a wholesaler, an actual importer.
Really?
So real easy to get rid of them. Yeah.
So, like I said, going back to breeding fish, that definitely helps. And a lot of stuff, kind of off topic rainbows here, but just, the idea of breeding and profit for general, you have to know your market. And I personally, while I can occasionally profit on some of the fish that I breed stuff that I enjoy, not necessarily something that other people want. That's why I have rainbows. Other people may want them, but it's not something you're going to make money on. But if a breeding for profit type situation, play to your market. If you can get by and move fish without having to ship fish, definitely play that game. I know here in the Midwest we have really hard water. Not so much right now because of just the wave thing of popularity, but African cichlids, the main lake stuff was massive, and people were making a killing breeding African cichlids, and those things, a lot of them are so stupid easy to spawn, like all your peacocks. And
they have huge spawns as well,
right? And I know, guppies are a stupid easy one to make money off of, because no matter what, they could be mutt guppies, but if they look like cool mutt guppies, you're gonna be able to sell them to somebody that wants them.
In my experience, mutt guppies have sold way better. So when I did have a local fish store here, like I think I had like 6 or 7 different strains of guppies. And he was like, stop bringing me this crap. Bring me mutts. That's what sells. And so I just took them all and threw them in one tank. And I was like, all right, here you go. And yeah, I mean, he sold them way faster than when I was like, here's Red Delta strain. Like, just the mutts were
you know why that is?
Because people don't care.
No, because usually kids have guppy tanks, or it's like a family tank project. And they come in and go like, I want the blue one. I want that yellow one. I want that red one. So
he did charge more. Like he had like his guppy prices, and it's like if you want a specific guppy, it's X amount more, just because the extra time it takes to catch a specific guppy.
Right. That's funny how that works.
Hey, one last question, new question. I kind of feel out of place here because you two are both rainbow nerds, and I'm like, okay, I never kept rainbows before. I mean, I sell rainbows, but doesn't mean I know anything about rainbows. So I'm setting up that 75. Any tips, advice of anything that could go wrong as a noob to rainbows?
So one thing I say is don't put any hardscape in the upper water column. That's one thing I don't like, is because rainbows, especially when you feed them, if they see something, they're going to go straight at it. It doesn't matter if there's a big rock in front of them, a tree, whatever. They're going to go and they just bust their noses right into it. A lot of times people will be like, oh, my rainbow fish, it's got, some sort of fungus on its mouth. And no, it's not fungus. It just ran into something. It's injured. So now when I'm setting up an aquascape, I try to keep like that top layer open because I'll just zoom back and forth like 1,000 miles an hour. Don't even care.
Yeah, I'm just
doing the same thing. If you're setting like tanks like next to each other and you feed this tank, then they'll just go boom and they'll smash right into the side of the tank. That's my only really advice. I mean, they're pretty easy. And obviously you can go on YouTube and see lots of people have hardscape all over the place, but I don't know. I just hate when they bash their noses.
Right.
I mean, they're super fast, super active fish, so I mean, they need room to roam.
And one of the huge benefits to going with rainbow fish in a planet tank is, sometimes you can lose fish pretty easy in a mix of plants. If it's pretty densely planted, sometimes it's hard to see the plants. But there's so many different varieties of angelfish that regardless of if you're going Dutch or whatever, if you're just going all green stuff or you're leaning towards red stuff, you can find a rainbow fish that's color will contrast your planetscape and still stand out. Like I said, they're super active. So discus, there's a million colors of discus, but to me a discus looks like a dinner plate just hanging on the wall. And rainbows are super active. They interact. They're going to use up the whole tank, and you're going to see them zip in and out of the plants and stuff. And it's I feel like just as a tank, personally, I can sit and stare at a rainbow tank, like a planted rainbow tank, and there's just so much. It's almost commotion, and sometimes it's hectic because they're just zipping around all the time. But that keeps my attention.
Another thing for that, new people need to be aware of, and I almost talk about this in any rainbow fish video I do, is the food you feed them has to be really small because they have very narrow throats. So they have big mouths, but narrow throats. So they'll get something that they can't swallow just because it'll fit in their mouth, and then it'll kill them. So I never do like large pellets at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to feed smaller stuff as well, especially. So that's one thing we talked about breeding a little bit. Let's touch on that some for people that might be interested in breeding rainbows. What would you say? I've kind of got a couple things in mind as far as just bare bones necessary items if you wanted to breed. There's a set of tools I have in mind that you can breed almost any rainbow fish with. What would you say? Like the 3 or 4 things that you would need in place are?
So for me, it would be frozen foods and spawning mops, and that's all it's ever taken.
Okay.
I would, if I was specifically doing it to spawn them, I would do completely bare bottom. I would have no hardscape at all. It would just be like, there is the one time when I was breeding Parkinsoni. That's the only time I specifically tried to breed a rainbow fish, and that's all I did in a 20 long was one spawning mop on one end. And that was it. And lots of frozen food.
Yep. And I'm with you 100% there. It's like I said, the Alani that I have now, they're a little bit bigger rainbow. So I got a 40 breeder, 2 sponge filters. I keep a spawning mop at each end, and I feed, a mix of live and frozen foods. And I personally pull them up and hatch them out separately, which I started doing, but then I found out that my group of fish does not eat their fry. So less work that I have to do is better for everybody. So I just let the fry hatch out in there, and then I'll move the fry after they hatch and feed them separately.
Yeah, the other thing to be aware of with the fry is you got to feed them a lot, and they do not like current. So
no,
you can kill off your fry with even a sponge filter if it's turned up too high.
Yep, and that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. So I do keep I'll initially move my fry to a 2.5. very low, like a sponge filter, but just like a trickle, because they do hang out up at the surface. So like Bob said, that the too much at the surface, you'll definitely be losing your fry. And rainbow fish fry, particularly the full size rainbows, the pseudomugils actually, when they hatch out, from what I've seen, they hatch out larger than the regular rainbows.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. so a fish, the pseudomugils, I mean, you're talking luminatus, they're like a little over an inch. And when they hatch out, they're larger than, like a 5 or 6 inch rainbow fish fry. But I found that green water really helps with hatching those small bows out and get them going until they can get on baby brine.
That's pretty true about any fish, though. Green water is amazing.
That's a secret. Dragonlair said he feeds his rainbows the fine bug bites. That's a food that I personally haven't fed myself. Seems like most people have pretty good luck with it. Geek Boy said that his rainbows are the only ones that compete with his bleeding heart tetras for food. Yeah, if you keep. No, I personally haven't had any problems because I tend to feed off like several times a day and quite a bit. But if you do have some slower eaters or some fish that aren't necessarily as active or aggressive to get to the food, they'll easily be outcompeted for food by rainbows.
Which is why plants are so great, because a lot of those slow fish will hang out in the plants and you can just feed in the plants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which, I mean, rainbows work out perfect in planted tanks. I know I think it was Alishan earlier mentioned that he likes to use his rainbows for dithers above like geos or the gymnogeos, which they both like a little bit softer water. And Dragonlair mentioned green water for the rainbow fry. Yeah, that was kind of a turning point where I saw a lot more success in raising mine out. However, I was able to raise some of the fry using the 5 to 50 micron golden pearls. It's just a little bit more. It's kind of a dirty food. But it works out okay.
I spun some Goiter River, and those took golden pearls right from the start as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it's a lot of people when they're just getting into breeding fish, they ask, "Oh, well, what should I feed my fry?" And pick our first bites or bites comes up a lot, I think. But for dry food, golden pearls, I've fed them from everything from guppy fry to rainbow fry to when I had on a saltwater clowns. They actually the fry took those instead of roasting, so it worked out pretty well. So I found those pretty useful, and they're cheap. I mean, a pack of golden pearls is like $5, and I mean, like a half pound has lasted me like 5 years.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I feel we talk about fish that should be more popular. Golden pearls, I feel, should be way more popular in the hobby.
Mm-hmm. And
especially because you can get it from 5 to 500 micron. I feed golden pearls to my crystal shrimp, and they love it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's good all around food, and it's cheap. I mean, it's super cheap. I think last time I ordered some, I got it from Ken's. It was like I said, $5 or $6 maybe, and it's lasted me a long time. And I'm not sure why it's not more popular than it is as far as a basic food goes. Holly Gibbs got some Blue Dream shrimp. They arrived safe and warm. Good deal. Just good job packing them. Like I said, we briefly talked earlier a little bit about Neos, and I've got them down at 60 degrees. Just fine. Dragonlair says he uses the Sarah Micron. I haven't personally used that food. I don't think I've fed any of the Sarah foods. I know the ONIP tabs are popular, and seems like they're producing a quality food from what I've heard. I just haven't got my hand on
it. Well, they
them.
just changed their recipe, and it's not that good anymore.
Oh, really? So that's for the ONIP recipe?
For the ONIP, yeah.
Okay.
They're actually pretty awful now.
Really?
Yeah, I had to stop buying them. It was pretty drastic too.
So somebody out there has a stash in a warehouse, and they're gonna hold on to those.
I've got one can left of the original before they changed it.
Yeah. Anthony's fishy friend said 500 micron. 500 micron is not super small. 5 micron you're getting down there though. Which is that I think the smallest they sell is a 5 to 50. That's what I use for my new rainbows.
Yeah, 500 is pretty big.
Maria Z said she got the golden pearls because of you, Bob. Her problem, but it stinks to high heaven. No,
I don't think they stink. They shouldn't stink. I've never had. I mean, they don't smell good, but they've never smelled any worse than any other fish food.
Right. And I think it can be a food that initially I was overfeeding a little bit just because it doesn't take much. It's such a fine powder that you don't realize how much food you're putting into the water column. And I believe it was Dean that actually, he uses like a makeup brush or a small paintbrush, I think, and he just taps it into his little containers.
Mm-hmm.
Did Dean ever raise or spawn rainbows? He probably did. I mean, he does everything.
I think maybe Praycox, but I don't remember.
I feel like Dean be the one that would like spawn rainbows and they'd be all colored up in like 2 months. Just because he's so good.
I mean, 2 months would be impressive. I don't know if, any of the rainbows that I think maybe the Luminatus you could start getting a little color in, but most of the others are, God, they just take so long. That's because, like I said,
7 months, really.
The pseudomigils, they hatch out like twice the size of any of the other rainbow fish. I mean, you're lucky to get 1 or 2 eggs a day versus like your Militanias, you'll get 30 to 40 eggs a day. The pseudomigils only have 1 or 2, but they just hatch out so much bigger.
It definitely shouldn't smell like gym socks. I think you have something wrong.
What?
Dragon Layer thinks Dean bred Praycox a couple years ago.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Dean was bringing Praycox into Aquarium Co-op. So yeah, it was Dean.
Mm.
And I remember now he had like hundreds of them in his tanks. So yeah.
Really? Kangley said ×2 on that one. So look at that. Danny Weshy. Hey Danny, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. It seems like we still got a few new people kind of poking in and out. And before I forget, big thanks to Priscilla. Obviously, she's been my co-host a couple weeks now. Huge thanks, Bob Steenfott, more or less for volunteering last week at a topic and your time. So thanks for stopping by. I'm definitely learning a lot from you. I love your videos. If you haven't yet, check out Priscilla MK. If you're not subscribed to her, do so. She also has SwissAquatics.com, where she sells her art, and she's starting to sell some more live goods and shipping fish. And Steenfott Aquatics. Check out Bob. I know, Bob, you got a crazy number of people that know about you already, but I'm sure there's somebody in here that isn't subscribed or hasn't checked out your website. And Bob's going through kind of a little transition period right now, but he's definitely working on getting stuff up bigger and
probably not till spring
better.
though.
I'm looking forward to it. So I'm kind of in the same boat where I tore down. I went from 25 tanks down to about 4, and it's going to be a little bit of a slow build for myself just to get my personal stuff going again.
Yep.
So
that's kind of where I'm at.
And you know what? That's fine. I'm not in a hurry. While I do miss being able to keep as many species as I had running, I'm okay with less work right now. So obviously, I don't personally, I don't rely on it for income, so it doesn't affect my way of life like it might some people.
I've always built my fish rooms either like my first fish room. I didn't intend it to be a fish room. It's just like, oh, I got to get another tank. Oh, I got to get another tank. So it was like pretty haphazard with like tank sizes. And then my second fish room was like, I got to get this thing built right now. So now I have an opportunity to like take it slow, plan it out. I haven't decided if I'm going to do auto water changes yet. I'm kind of still on the fence, but I'm just going a lot slower, easier pace, make sure that's how I want it to be.
Right. And I feel like I feel like that's kind of the path of most long-term hobbyists that are in aquaria. They have the sudden burst of tanks where you just stack any tank you can get cheap everywhere, and you just
whatever you find on Craigslist.
Like stuff there's stuff on the dresser. There's like tanks under your bed. There's tubs, just scattered about, and you're like, okay, I need to do this a little bit better. So like, I'm gonna build a fish room, but I want this fish room tomorrow. So you still use all the same tanks, like a million different sizes. Nothing looks the same, and it's just a disaster. You have like this hang on, like a tidal hang on back here, an aqua clear, a marina, a penguin, and now you have all the same stuff condensed into a stack. I'm like, okay, version 3, you're finally getting down to business. Like, okay, I'm gonna have all 10-gallon tanks here with sponge filters. I'm gonna do all 20 highs here, whatever. And you get actually organized, and you have a little more method to the madness.
Yeah, it should be fun. I just way back in the day, I remember like someone giving away a shell dweller tank. It was like a 9-gallon long, super rare tank I've never seen with shell dwellers, and I'm like, I'll take it. I'll come, and I brought it home, and I have nowhere to put this thing, so it ended up on my nightstand in my bedroom. And I was like, yeah, okay, maybe it's time to reel it in here a little bit.
Yeah, little bit of a reality check. So I've seen a couple people mention it, and John McKenzie said that he loves your outdoor channel, and that's something that I'm an outdoor guy. I love to fish. I love to camp. Check out Get Outdoors. I think Anthony dropped it down in the chat a little ago. Yep, I see it. Get Outdoors. That's more or less Bob and Schwisky, Jimmy Gimbal, and Corey going out doing. Right now, it's overnight camping trips. Maybe it'll turn into, you guys have plans for like weekend trips where you stay a few nights, or?
Yeah, so right now, because of my situation, I can only do overnighters with my 3 dogs. So I have no one to watch them.
Right.
And they're, it's not hard to get someone to check in on my dogs for one night. But hopefully that'll change. I'm building a large outdoor kennel for them. I can't take my dogs with me right now because they're all short-haired dogs, and it's like 1 degree outside, so they get cold really easily. But come summer, we'll be doing like 2-3 night trips, and hopefully some backpacking and all kinds of fun stuff. And I'll be actually able to take my dogs.
Awesome. I did laugh. So the last one that I watched, I think it was number 7. Was where you guys stayed at the more or less the picnic area. Yeah. And you had stuff set in the shelter, and you built my kids been playing with the same thing, the snow brick maker. Yep. And you tried to build the wall up to the ceiling to cut the wind out, and then it fell. So
well, it was fine. It was fine. And then Corey's like, "What? You're not going to go to the ceiling?" And I'm like, "Oh, now you're going to call me out." So I slowly started adding more, and then it just got too hot inside. It was actually melting from the inside. And that's what caused it to lean and tip forward. So I'm like, yeah. I put too many bricks up there, which caused it to get too warm and melted it.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So yeah, if those of you that are interested in outdoor stuff, or if you just enjoy a good laugh and some entertainment, Jimmy and Bob are doing some cool stuff.
People are getting confused and thinking it's like some hardcore survival bushcraft and like giving us crap for staying at state parks, and like, we're just dudes having fun out in the wild. Like, right. we don't claim to be experts or anything. I mean, I've been camping and hiking my whole life, but we're just hanging out, having fun, relaxing. That's the whole point.
I mean, you guys go and make biscuits and gravy and fillets for dinner, so it can't be too tough. So Danny said there's a fish room, then there's fish tanks all over the house. It's okay. He doesn't have a problem. He has an aquarium. Something like that. I think if you stay in the hobby long enough, you'll be there, where you ramp up and you hit a stupid amount of tanks. You're like, whoa, what am I doing with my life here? And then you reel it back in.
It does. I had a rack of 20-gallon longs in my bathroom, for crying out loud, and I'm just like, okay. Like, but I feel like at some point a lot of us have been there, so it was definitely time to scale it back a little.
Or you're going to end up working in a fish store.
For me, actually, I had to stop looking at Craigslist and Facebook, because that's how I ended up with all this crap. People post amazing deals, and I'd be like, I got to get it right now. And so I just had to I have to stay away from those sites now.
Yeah, that's why I have. So before I tore my little closet down, I had 25 tanks running. But what you didn't see was another 25 tanks stacked up behind those that I acquired in the deal. So a good friend of mine was getting out of the hobby. He retired. He wanted to spend some time with his grandkids. He's getting out of the hobby, and he gave me just a stupid deal on everything. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to say no. So I took it, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I'll ever set all these tanks up, but it's nice to have, and I can stack them together. So I'm not a hoarder. I just have a backup plan.
Well, guys, it was fun. I got to go because I got to be somewhere in 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, thanks for teaching us more about how to keep rainbow fish.
Yeah, it was fun, and I tried to tonight just talk on a little bit of a broad range of rainbow topics, everything from some of the variety that you might see to simple keeping to a little bit of breeding. And hopefully, like I said, rainbow fish are super underrated in the hobby, and hopefully it inspired some people to at least go out and take a look at them and consider keeping them.
I'm definitely going to do it now. I'm still going to do a rainbow tank, but yeah, we'll see.
Okay. All right, Priscilla, thanks for stopping by. And when are you streaming again? Because I know you recently changed and then you changed again. So when's your next stream?
Yeah, so I was trying to be considerate and try to find a good time to stream. And I ended up with Saturday night, 8 p.m. my time, which is 7 Pacific or 10 Eastern.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be it. And then after my stream, we're just going to do an hour on my channel, but then we're going to go on to Punchy Paints and do some art.
Awesome.
So
that should be a great time. I should be able to, now that I'm home and I've been settled in, I should be able to tune in for that one. So hopefully we'll see everybody there. So make sure if you're not subscribed to Priscilla, hit the bell so that you get notifications when she goes live Saturday.
Thanks, Bob. Bye.
See ya.
All right. Awesome. Looks like we still have a few people hanging out. I know like I said, we've covered a wide range and we've kind of bounced around. But if you guys have any specific questions about rainbow fish, feel free to drop them in the comments now that things are slowing down. We'll probably go for, I don't know what you got for time tonight, Bob. I'm thinking maybe if people are done, we can call it now, or maybe press for another 15 minutes if there's a few questions that pop up.
I'm good till 8:30 my time, 15 more minutes.
Okay, 15 more minutes. It's good. Now, I kind of talked about some of the rainbow fish that I keep and breeding them in softer water, but do you have any experience with Cyanodorsalis, which is actually more or less brackish?
That's one I've actually never kept, and I almost got into them when I accidentally got some brackish fish in. I was almost going to do it, and then Zenzo, who does a lot of brackish tanks, was like, I'll take those fish from you. And I'm like, well, you're way better with brackish fish. So I just sent it to him, and then my dreams of Cyanodorsalis kind of went to the wayside.
Right.
But I've been told that they're actually like the easiest Pseudomagill to breed out of all of them.
Really? I kept a batch of 6 for a while, and they came in full fresh. And I slowly converted them. I got them up to right about 1.015, which I think is kind of a decent target for spawning them. And then it was time to downsize and end up getting rid of them before I had the chance to actually spawn them. So someday I'd like to try them again. It's one of those things that I kind of just hate mixing salt, to be honest. It just makes water changes more work.
I'll be honest, when I got those fish, I didn't even mix salt. Like I did it like the first time. So, and then after that I was like, it's about this much. It sounds terrible, but yeah, I
eyeball it.
I don't like doing that either.
That looks about right. And I think because I had a 75 gallon a small reef for a while. I didn't keep it long enough to really grow much out. But I put off water changes and did smaller water changes just because I didn't want to mix salt water. That was it. Like that was the only reason. But,
well, the nice thing about brackish is
I don't know if I'll keep a saltwater tank.
Brackish doesn't have to be like a specific gravity like a saltwater tank. If you think about it, like fish and brackish systems are going back and forth through different salinities like their entire life, like multiple times a day. So just to get you just have to get about the right amount.
As long as you're close.
Yeah.
So I'd like to do a brackish tank, and I haven't looked into the details of it, but there's some pretty cool. Obviously, you can keep mangroves in brackish, which would be cool. And there's a couple plants that I've seen people kind of sorta be able to keep in brackish, but I'd like to look at some of the macroalgae and see how low of a salinity they can go without being full salt, because you can get macroalgae in green and purple and red.
And I've gotten that red and like super hard Tanganyikan tanks. I've gotten that red algae before, which is pretty fun.
Really?
But that's honestly like the main reason I don't do brackish is because there's like 3 plants that you can put in there or something. It's nothing like a freshwater tank. That's the only. I love planted tanks. I'll never not have a plant in my tank.
It's like Danny said, Java Fern does well. Dragon Lair said some vowels do great in brackish. If I'm not mistaken, vowels actually come from Lake Tanganyika, where they're in that real hard water. That's not really far off from salt, so I could definitely see that.
Well, there's also 100 different vowel species. I mean, we have Americana vowel here, so
right. Yep. Danny said he's got some mangroves, and actually, I saw the other day Kenny E from Danikin was showing off his mud skipper tank, and he had some mangroves growing in there that were doing pretty well. But Salt Creek drives me nuts. I mean, I've got hard enough water being in the Midwest and have calcium deposits that are bad enough, let alone salt creep everywhere.
I've done one saltwater tank, and I don't remember if it was the 14 or the 28 gallon BioCube. And I had that running for like a year and a half, and it was pretty basic. I just had like pulsing xenia corals and a couple shrimp and crabs. And for me, I just wanted the invertebrates. Like there's way more inverts in saltwater than there is freshwater. If that's the only reason I set it up was, well, one, because I love crabs. And so, and then I only got like the emerald crabs, which are like the cheapest, most basic crabs you can get, but they were awesome. And they were fun. They were always duking it out and fighting. Yeah.
They eat bubble algae, which is, I've seen some people say that they've had them eat like some of their like zoas and stuff, but I didn't experience that when I had them. I've got a 28 gallon BioCube as well, and it was salt for a little bit, and then I switched over to fresh. I built some LEDs for it, so I just swapped out some of the blue LEDs with some reds. It was fresh for a while, and I'm actually thinking about, now that I have some of my other tanks set up, I was thinking about doing a mantis shrimp. Because I know Priscilla's got hers, and I think, it just looks fun. It just looks fun.
Yeah, Maria, they're definitely a cool looking animal. I don't know if I can. I guess I don't even know how much they are. I just assume they're expensive just by how they look.
I want to say I looked at like Live Aquaria just to get a price estimate. They're like $50 or $60. And obviously, there's different variants. Some of them were, the ones that had a little more color were a little more expensive, but I don't think they were too bad. Maria's cracking jokes. She said Bob loves crabs.
Not those ones.
Alishan said he had a saltwater tank, snowflake moray, and orange toadfish. Both are indestructible. Somebody else, I think it was Sean, Shell Dweller Sean, so that if he did saltwater, he'd want a frogfish, and those are pretty cool little critters.
I want an octopus.
An octopus?
Yeah.
See, I don't know. I don't know if I've seen anybody that's had long-term success with them yet.
Exactly.
I know.
And the other problem is like places like Live Aquaria sell dwarf octopus, but are they really dwarf? You don't know. They could be like 10 feet long.
Right. Danny said he wants cuttlefish. He or she, I'm sorry. Wants a cuttlefish. So Laura Bierenbaum, who is she's big salty. She came out and did talk at a convention, and she's actually spawned cuttlefish, and she does a big talk on keeping cuttlefish. So that would be something. That's something that you can keep in a little bit smaller tank, and obviously if she spawned them and has had long-term success with them. So you don't get the fun of an octopus, but you get the kind of excitement of something completely different.
Well, also from my research, octopus are just not very fun at all. So they hide and they're escape artists. That's all I've heard from people that have kept them. You'll either never see them or they'll just escape and die.
Right. And speaking of escape artists, one thing that I personally haven't had a problem with, but I know a lot of people do. You know, we came here to talk about rainbow fish. We got derailed. We're going to bring it full circle. Back to rainbows at the end here. But have you had a problem with rainbows jumping?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
So,
yeah.
like I said, they're super active fish. They love to swim.
Always when feeding.
I've only lost one. I don't keep lids on my 125. I have my display in my living room. I don't keep lid on. I've never lost fish out of that. But I didn't close the lid on one of the Florida breeders that I kept the Allen in, and sure enough, found some fish jerky on the floor.
Yeah, so I find that so that's why, I mean, this right here, this is my favorite rainbow food right here. This is the where am I? Here I am. Extreme nano pellets. So like if you just grab like a pinch of them, like half of them sink and half of them float. And I think my issues when it comes to rainbow fish is like flake foods when they float, like they'll just dive bomb up and out of the water, and I can actually hear them smacking into the lids on my tanks.
Really?
So this is a super small pellet. It does sink pretty fast, which is nice, but not fast enough to where it just on the bottom. So it just kind of floats around, and it's like 58% protein, which is really good for rainbow fish. So, but yeah, if I do flake food, I can hear them banging into the top just the entire time.
Wholesaler about 30 years ago that occasionally brought in blue ring octopus. Now that sounds like a terrible idea. I don't know a ton about octopus, but I know for sure that one is pretty dangerous, actually.
Well, they even had the one at the Seattle Aquarium here escaped. And I'm like, well, if they can't even keep one confined, I'm certainly not going to be able to.
Right. Yeah, no thanks on that one. Black Label mentioned cuttlefish are adorable. Again, octopus are smart. Danny said cuttlefish are one of the ones that look big on TV but are actually tiny, and that it's surprising how small they are and how little space you actually need to keep them. Now, I don't know if they're super active as far as watching, but it is. I have watched a bunch of videos about them, and they're interesting to feed and see the color changes based on their moods and what's going on.
My new thing is an anglerfish. I think that'd be really fun.
How small of an anglerfish can you get?
I bought a used aquarium off of someone who had an anglerfish in like
Really?
a 9-gallon cube tank. And he's like, they don't require a lot of space because they never move.
Right.
They just sit there and fish all day long.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pretty wild looking though. He fed it while I was there. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah. Now, Danny asked if you need a pressurized tank for an anglerfish, because I know they come from traditionally usually pretty deep water.
Well, his definitely was not, because it didn't have a top on it.
Okay.
So I would say no.
Right. That's one thing. I was reading an article not long ago about shell dwellers, and they actually come from surprisingly deep water. Like usually we keep them in shallow tanks because they display well that way, but they come from deep water, which kind of makes you think about, we always talk about storms and like barometric pressure and stuff potentially triggering fish to spawn. So I wonder if
I'm sure it depends on the species too, because I have a DVD that's a documentary of Lake Tanganyika and all the fish and they're in there scuba diving, and there's shell dwellers up on the shore, but they also they like continue to go all the way down into the deep, so they're kind of all over the place.
Right. So yeah, it was super interesting. Alshan said Laura Birnbaum's founder of Reef Gen. Yep, that's what it is. And she gives a super cool talk. She's super nice. She came to a convention that we kind of helped throw together several years ago. Super nice gal to talk to. I said, as far as I know, mostly saltwater, but good stuff. All right. It looks like things are pretty well wrapping up, Bob. Again, thanks, Bob, for taking the time out of your day to stop by and talk with us. It's a pleasure. I know I've talked to you briefly before, so it's nice to actually hang out and chat with you for a bit. So I can't thank you enough for that. I'll get out of your hair for the evening. For everybody that's in the chat, if you haven't checked out Bob, go ahead, do so. Give him a few months to get spun back up, and you'll be able to get some goodies from him. He brings in some super cool stuff, great healthy fish. And check out his Get Outdoors channel. Like I said, even if you don't like to camp and you're not looking for something hardcore, give it a look. It's entertaining for sure. Jimmy flew his drone into the forest twice and then had to chase it down the cliff in the
There's
snow.
always goofy
I
stuff
was worried.
happens.
I was worried. You know, Jimmy's not a very big guy. I wasn't sure if he'd be able to climb back up. It looked like it was pretty steep.
Yeah, he was down there for a while. I mean, the video doesn't really indicate how long he was down there, but
Yeah.
he's looking at it like because you see the camera on your phone, and so he's taking his phone down there because he could see the drone shot, and he's trying to figure out where it is. Oh, he was down there forever.
Oh man, that's something like it's one of those things that would be a ton of fun to have, and you could do some super cool stuff with. But I feel like I'd lose that thing or break it in a heartbeat, and they're not cheap.
Yeah, I bought one of those DJI drones, and it was really fun. And then I had the good idea of flying it in my house, and it flew automatically into a wall, even though it's supposed to have avoidance detection. And it was so funny because it's sitting there flying, and it's going beep, 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 and then smashed. Like it knew the wall was there, but it didn't stop. So then I returned it.
Yeah. So, but no, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, thanks again. Twin Cities said thanks for the stream. Alishan, thanks for the stream. Great as usual.
Thanks for having me on. I love live streaming. It's always fun.
It's a pleasure, and it's fun to meet new people and actually get to have some one-on-one conversation and get some feedback through the chat. Like I said, kind of the two-way thing. If I wanted to just stand here and talk the whole time by myself, I'd just take videos. But live streams let me interact a little bit more with folks. And so some of the we try to be, or at least I'm trying to make this. Obviously, it's new, but I'm trying to make it so it's a little more informational and touches on both some of the easier questions maybe and some of the more advanced topics like getting into the breeding or specific water parameters. So you're a great asset, and one of these days I'd like to have you back. We'll touch on some other topics, maybe some fish room build stuff. Obviously, I've got this empty room behind me. That'll be my build, bounce some ideas off you. And it was great. So thanks, everybody in the chat. Thanks again, Bob. And I hope you guys have a great night.
See ya.
See you, Bob.